My name is Clara Ellingson. For the past 3 years, my life has been a study in quietude, painted in the muted tones of the Pacific Northwest. I live in Port Blossom, a town nestled between evergreen-draped hills and the moody gray waters of the Puget Sound. My home, a craftsman bungalow I once shared with my husband, Liam, is too large for one person. Its rooms echo with the ghost of a future we'd planned but never got to live. Liam was a boat builder, a man with hands as sturdy as the cedar he worked with, and a laugh that could chase away the persistent coastal fog. Cancer took him, and with him, it took the vibrant colors from my world, leaving me with a quiet grief and a career I could pursue from the solitary comfort of my home office. I'm an architectural illustrator, a job that suits my nature. I spend my days translating blueprints into dreams, giving structure and beauty to imagined spaces, all while my own life felt like an empty, unfinished blueprint. The morning Isabel dropped off her children was deceptively ordinary. A soft rain was falling, a gentle, rhythmic tapping against the window panes that usually soothed me. I was preparing for a video conference with a firm in Seattle, my laptop open on the heavy oak dining table Liam had built, a mug of tea growing cold beside a stack of sketches. Then came a different knock, 3 sharp, impatient raps that seemed to tear through the morning's tranquility. I opened the door to find my sister, Isabel, looking like a high-fashion mirage against the drizzly backdrop. Her trench coat was immaculate, her silk scarf perfectly knotted. Designer sunglasses, despite the overcast sky, were perched on her head like a tiara. Behind her stood her 3 children, looking small and bewildered. Leo, 10, his shoulders already set with a world weariness that didn't belong on a child. Maya, 7, clutching a sketchbook to her chest as if it were a shield, and little Sam, 4. His thumb firmly in his mouth, his other hand strangling the arm of a well-loved stuffed bear. They were each flanked by a small, stylish suitcase that looked as out of place as they did. "Clara, darling." Isabel's voice was a melody of feigned sweetness, the one she always used when she was about to ask for the impossible. "I need the most minuscule of favors." Before I could form a question, she was sweeping past me, a gust of expensive perfume and restless energy, ushering the children into my quiet foyer. "It's just for 2 weeks. 3 tops. I've been offered this residency in Tuscany, an artist's retreat. A chance to finally, reconnect with my own soul." I stood there, my mouth slightly agape, as she placed a leather portfolio on the table. "Here are their schedules, allergies, the boring stuff. Leo has soccer on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Maya's deathly allergic to peanuts, but you know that. And Sam still needs his little bear and a nightlight to sleep. Izzy, wait," I finally managed, the word catching in my throat. "I have work. I can't just." "You work from home," she said, waving a dismissive, perfectly manicured hand. "It's the perfect setup. Mom and Dad would have said it was the best solution." She had a habit of invoking our parents, gone for 5 years now, as if they were divine arbiters who would always rule in her favor. In our family, Isabel's desires had always been treated as imperatives, and my practicality as a convenient resource to facilitate them. "Besides," she continued, glancing at her phone, her reflection momentarily captured on the dark screen, "you're rattling around in this big house all by yourself. Some life and laughter will do good." The barb, casually tossed, found its mark. The mention of my solitude, a direct consequence of Liam's death, was a wound Isabel never hesitated to press. "My flight to Florence leaves in 4 hours, she announced, already moving toward the door, her mission accomplished. "I'll FaceTime you as soon as I'm settled. Be good, my darlings," she called over her shoulder to the children. A flurry of air kisses, the click of the door, and she was gone. Silence descended, heavier and more complicated than before. I was left with 3 shell-shocked children and a portfolio of responsibilities I had not chosen. I looked at my niece and nephews, standing like little statues in my living room. Maya's lower lip was trembling. Sam's grip on his brave bear, as he called him, tightened. Leo just looked at me, his eyes filled not with a child's confusion, but with a cynical anger that was startling. "She's not coming back in 2 weeks, is she?" Leo asked, his voice flat and hard. I wanted to lie. I wanted to wrap them in a comforting falsehood, to promise them their mother was just on a short trip. But looking into his piercingly perceptive eyes, I saw that he already knew the truth, and a lie would only be an insult to his intelligence. "Let's find you guys some rooms," I said instead, my voice softer than I intended. "And then we can figure out what's for breakfast." The first week was a whirlwind of controlled chaos. I postponed client deadlines, transformed my quiet guest rooms into children's sanctuaries, and learned the intricate, unforgiving choreography of school drop-offs and pick-up lines. Isabel's portfolio was a masterpiece of style over substance. The schedules were vague, the emergency contacts outdated. I discovered the full extent of Maya's allergy not from Izzy's note, but from a terrifying hives and epinephrine ordeal after she'd shared a friend's granola bar at school. Isabel's promised FaceTime call never materialized. Instead, a text message arrived 2 days later. "Tuscany is a dream. So much inspiration. Met a fascinating sculptor named Marco. This is exactly what my soul needed." 2 weeks stretched into a month. A month bled into 3. Isabel's Instagram account became the sole narrator of her journey. Sun-drenched photos in Italian piazzas, sailing trips off the Amalfi Coast, and increasingly, cozy pictures with Marco, his arms slung possessively around her. The captions were filled with hashtags like #LivingMyTruth and #ArtIsLife. Meanwhile, my life was filled with spelling tests, scraped knees, and parent-teacher conferences. I was learning to navigate the labyrinth of childhood. Leo, I discovered, was being bullied at school, his simmering anger a defense against his feelings of inadequacy. Isabel had never mentioned it. Maya's nightmares about being left behind began to lessen as I sat by her bed night after night, a constant, reassuring presence. Sam, slowly, stopped asking every morning if today was the day Mommy was coming home. My quiet, orderly house began to fill with the sounds of life, not just the echoes of it. It was exhausting, and it was, to my surprise, healing a part of me I thought had died with Liam. My own mother, before she passed, had always enabled Isabel. "She has an artist's temperament, Clara," she would say with a sigh. "She feels things more deeply than we do." I used to believe it. Now I saw it for what it was, a beautiful excuse for selfishness. For months after Isabel's departure, a crisp, formal envelope arrived. It was from a law firm. Inside, temporary guardianship papers awaited my signature. Just a formality, a cover letter explained, to make school and medical decisions easier while Isabel is abroad. I sat at the oak table late that night, long after the children were asleep, the house finally still. I stared at the documents that would legally bind me to 3 children I had never planned to raise. I thought of Liam, of the family we'd dreamed of, the nursery we had planned to paint. I picked up his photo from the mantelpiece. "What would you do, Liam?" I whispered to his smiling face. As always, there was no answer, only the steadfast love in his eyes. The next morning, I called Eleanor Vance. She had handled my father's estate and later Liam's. She was a woman of sharp intellect and quiet compassion, a combination I desperately needed. "Don't sign a thing until I've reviewed it, Clara," she said, her voice firm over the phone. "Something about the way Isabel is doing this feels strategic." 2 days later, Eleanor called back. Her tone was different, charged with a strange mix of excitement and gravity. "Clara, while I was doing the standard due diligence, I cross-referenced your family's estate files. It's about your father." "My father? He's been gone for 5 years, Eleanor. What could there be?" "He left a second will, Clara," she said, her voice dropping slightly. "A codicil." "It was sealed, with very specific instructions that it only be opened under certain circumstances. I believe your sister's prolonged, undocumented absence might be the very trigger he anticipated." The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying your father was a very shrewd man. And he knew his daughters. Come to my office. Bring the papers Isabel sent you. And Clara," she added, a note of conviction in her voice, "this changes everything." Eleanor Vance's office, with its floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and scent of old paper and leather, felt like a sanctuary of reason. Documents were spread across her wide mahogany desk like a strategic map. Your father was a remarkable man, she said as I sank into the chair opposite her. And it seems he saw Isabel with a clarity that few others did. She slid a thick, vellum-like document toward me. It was bound with a ribbon, the seal now broken. He created this 12 years ago, just after Leo was born. It contains specific provisions regarding the welfare of Isabel's children. My hand trembled as I took the document. Attached to the dense legal jargon was a letter, penned in my father's familiar, elegant script. My dearest Clara, if you are reading this, I can only assume that my deepest fears for my grandchildren have been realized, and that Isabel has chosen the siren song of her own desires over the steady rhythm of motherhood. I watched her with baby Leo, and I saw the restlessness in her eyes, the way she looked back at her life before him not with fondness, but with a palpable longing. I love your sister, Clara, but I am not blind to her nature. Therefore, I have established a significant trust for the care, upbringing, and education of her children. The terms are simple. Should Isabel abandon her children for a period exceeding 3 months, this trust is to be activated. The house I left to her, our family home, will immediately transfer to you, Clara, along with sufficient funds drawn from the main estate to allow you to raise the children without financial hardship. Isabel will be granted a modest monthly stipend, but she will be barred from accessing the bulk of her inheritance unless, and until she returns and demonstrates, for a period of no less than 1 year, a genuine and sustained commitment to her parental duties. I am placing this burden on you because you have always been the anchor in our family. Where Izzy chases the horizon, you tend the garden. I am sorry for the weight of this responsibility, but those children deserve a life of stability, of knowing they are cherished above all else. Take care of them, my girl. And know that in this, I have done my best to take care of you. With all my love. Dad. Tears streamed down my face, blurring the ink. I read it again, and then a third time. All these years, he had known. He had seen the storm coming and built a lifeboat. Eleanor gave me a moment, pushing a box of tissues silently across the desk. The trust is substantial, Clara. Your father was an astute investor. The children will want for nothing. And there are provisions to compensate you fairly for your time and for putting your career on hold. I don't care about the money, I said, the words coming out automatically, fiercely. Eleanor smiled, a small, knowing smile. I know. That's precisely why he chose you. She then picked up the guardianship papers Isabel had sent. Now, about these. This isn't just for temporary guardianship. The language is slippery. She's trying to get you to sign away your right to contest any future custody arrangements she might make. What does that mean? It means she's clearing the path. My contacts suggest she and this Marco character are talking about relocating the children to Italy permanently. These papers would make it exceedingly difficult for you to object. A cold dread washed over me. The thought of Leo, Maya, and Sam being uprooted again, taken to a foreign country by a mother who had already proven she could walk away from them without a backward glance, was unbearable. What do we do? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Eleanor's smile became a little sharper, less compassionate, and more tactical. We use your father's will. Isabel's actions have fulfilled the conditions. Legally, the house in Port Blossom is now yours. More importantly, we can and should file for permanent guardianship. Citing abandonment, backed by the full weight of your father's foresight, gives us an incredibly strong case. I thought of Leo, whose anger was finally starting to soften into trust. I thought of Maya, whose sketchbook was now filled with bright, happy drawings instead of shadowed figures. I thought of Sam, who now ran to me for comfort, his brave bear tucked under his arm. Do it, I said, a new and unfamiliar resolve hardening within me. Do whatever it takes. That night, as I tucked the children into their beds, Maya in the room I'd painted a soft lavender, Leo in his den of soccer posters, Sam curled around his bear in his little boat-shaped bed that Liam would have loved, I felt a profound sense of purpose. Isabel had given birth to these children, but she had never truly seen them. She never saw how Leo's sarcasm was a shield for his fear of being unwanted. She never understood that Maya's fierce need for praise was a plea for her mother's attention. She never realized that Sam's quiet clinginess was a symptom of deep-seated insecurity. But I saw them. And thanks to my father's love, a love that reached across time, I could now protect them. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Isabel. Marco and I are engaged. Thinking of bringing the children over for a wedding in the spring. Wouldn't they just love Tuscany? I looked at the 3 peaceful, sleeping faces in my home. I thought of the documents on Eleanor's desk. And with a steady hand, I typed back. Isabel, we need to talk. The real fight, I knew, was just beginning. Isabel's response was not a text, but an early morning video call. The sun was barely up in Port Blossom, casting long, soft shadows across the kitchen. I took the call on the back deck, the cool, damp air a bracing contrast to the heat I felt rising in my chest. What do you mean, we need to talk? Isabel's face, flawlessly made up even at what must have been midday in Italy, filled my screen. Behind her, the rolling hills of Tuscany were bathed in golden light. The kids would adore it here. Marco's family has a villa. The children aren't going to Tuscany, Izzy, I said, my voice quiet but unyielding. And we need to discuss Dad's second will. The shift in her expression was instantaneous. The breezy, carefree smile dissolved, replaced by a sharp, calculating stillness. What second will? The one he wrote to protect your children from this exact situation, I said, watching her carefully. He knew, Izzy. He knew you would eventually do this. She let out a short, brittle laugh. That's absurd. Daddy adored me. He would never. I'm their mother. I have rights. Rights you forfeited when you vanished for half a year to find your soul, I replied, the bitterness I'd suppressed for months finally seeping into my tone. Do you have any idea what's been happening in their lives? Leo made the travel soccer team. Maya won a district-wide art prize. Sam has finally, stopped waking up in the middle of the night crying for you. Don't you dare lecture me, she snapped, her voice rising. You have no idea what it's like. I was so young. I missed out on my entire 20s. Now that I've finally found some happiness. At the expense of your children's happiness? I cut in. They're not pieces of luggage you can leave in storage until they fit into your travel plans, Isabel. They're small, vulnerable people who are desperate for stability and love. They had that with me. I'm their mother. No, Izzy, I said, the words landing with a quiet finality. You are their birth mother. For the last 6 months, I'm the one who has been mothering them. The ensuing silence was vast, stretching across the thousands of miles between my rainy deck and her sunny villa. Isabel's face had gone pale beneath her tan, her carefully constructed mask of joyful self-discovery cracking at the seams. I'm calling Mom's sister, Aunt Carol, she finally stammered. This is insane. You can't just. The house is legally mine now, Izzy, I interrupted gently. That was part of Dad's provision. The trust for the children has been activated. You can call whoever you want, but a lawyer is who you'll need to talk to. The facts are the facts. Her eyes narrowed into slits. So that's what this is about. Your little power play. Steal my inheritance, steal my children. You're just bitter and jealous because you and Liam never had your own. The cruelty of her words was a physical blow, designed to shatter my composure. A year ago, it would have. But the past 6 months had forged a new kind of armor around my heart. Eleanor Vance is handling the legalities, I said, my voice steady. You remember her. Dad's attorney. Her office will be in touch. But I'm telling you now, so you hear it from me, the children are staying here. We'll see about that, she hissed, and the screen went black. The onslaught began within hours. First, my Aunt Carol, who'd sent a single Christmas card in 5 years, called, weeping about how I was tearing the family apart. Then came calls from old family friends, people who hadn't seen the children since they were toddlers, suddenly experts on their welfare, parroting Isabel's narrative of a sensitive artist and her manipulative, lonely sister. The worst came 3 days later. An official notice. Isabel was filing for emergency custody, her petition a work of fiction that painted me as an unstable, grieving widow who had kidnapped her children to fill the void in her own life. I called Eleanor in a panic, reading the wild accusations aloud. She was calm. This is good, Clara, she said, her voice a steadying anchor. She's overplaying her hand. She is showing the court exactly who she is. Every one of these desperate, Dramatic actions just proves your father's assessment of her character. A court date was set for the following week. The most difficult part was telling the children. I sat with them in the living room, the space that now felt so much like ours. Leo was quiet, his expression grim. "She wants to take us to Italy, doesn't she?" he asked, his hands balling into fists at his sides. "I'm not going. You can't make me go." Maya burst into silent, hiccuping tears. "But my art class is here," she whispered. "And my friends, and you're here." Sam, sensing the storm of emotion, simply crawled into my lap, buried his face in my shoulder, and held on tight. The day of the hearing dawned gray and heavy, the sky threatening a storm. I dressed in a simple navy blue dress, my only armor a sense of conviction. Isabel arrived looking like she'd stepped out of a magazine, Marco at her side, a portrait of glamorous, aggrieved motherhood. I noticed she didn't look at the children, who were waiting with a friend of mine in a quiet courthouse anteroom. She couldn't seem to meet their eyes. The judge was a woman in her late 60s, Judge Alastair, with intelligent, discerning eyes that missed nothing. Isabel's lawyer spoke first, a florid man who wove a story of a young, overwhelmed mother who had made a temporary, ill-advised choice, only to have her children held hostage by a predatory sister. Then Eleanor stood up. She was calm, methodical, and devastating. She presented the timeline of Isabel's abandonment. She showed the court printouts of Isabel's social media posts, parties, beaches, and romantic dinners, posted on the same days she had ignored her children's tearful phone calls. She had sworn affidavits from the children's teachers and their pediatrician, detailing their neglect before my care and their marked improvement since. And then, she presented my father's will and the attached letter. She read his words aloud, and in the sterile, silent courtroom, my father's love and wisdom felt like a living presence. "Your Honor," Eleanor concluded, "this is not an attempt to sever a mother from her children. This is about providing these three young people with the security and stability their own grandfather knew they would one day desperately need. My client, Clara Ellingson, has not sought this role, but she has fulfilled it with unwavering love and dedication. The children are, for the first time in a long time, thriving. We ask the court to honor their best interests and their grandfather's prescient wishes." Judge Alastair asked to speak to Leo and Maya in her chambers. Sam was deemed too young. When they returned a few minutes later, Leo was standing taller, a look of resolve on his face. Maya's eyes were red-rimmed, but she walked with a new firmness in her step. The judge's ruling was swift and clear. Temporary sole custody is to remain with the plaintiff, Ms. Ellingson, pending a full custody evaluation. The defendant, Ms. Isabel Dufresne, will be granted supervised visitation rights, should she choose to exercise them in this country. Isabel leaped to her feet. "This is outrageous. They are my children. I gave birth to them." "Ms. Dufresne," Judge Alastair's voice was like ice, cutting through Isabel's histrionics. "Giving birth is a biological fact. Parenting is a sustained and selfless act. Based on the extensive evidence presented today, you have demonstrated a commitment to the former and a complete abdication of the latter. If you wish to have any meaningful role in these children's lives, I suggest you start demonstrating that parenting is an action you are capable of. Session is adjourned." Isabel stared, speechless for once, then turned and stormed out of the courtroom, Marco trailing in her wake like an expensive accessory. I heard later they flew back to Italy that same evening. That night, after tucking the children into bed, a new sense of peace seemed to settle over the house. They knew. They were safe. They were home. As I was about to turn off her light, Maya called out to me. "Clara." "Yes, sweetie. Is it okay? Can I call you Mom?" A wave of emotion so powerful it almost buckled my knees washed over me. I sat on the edge of her bed and smoothed the hair from her forehead. "You can call me whatever feels right in your heart, Maya. No pressure ever." She was quiet for a moment, then whispered, I think you're more of a mom than she ever was." I gathered her into my arms, holding her while she cried out all the complicated, painful feelings of loving a mother who wasn't capable of loving you back enough. Later, sitting on the back deck with a glass of wine, I looked up at the vast, star-dusted sky, and thought of my father. He had known. He had known Isabel's heart, known what the children would need, and trusted that I would be there to provide it. "I hope I'm doing right by you all," I whispered into the night. My phone buzzed. A text from Isabel. "This isn't over." I looked back at my house, at the warm lights glowing in the windows of the rooms where 3 children slept, finally secure. "No," I typed back. "It's just beginning." Because this was no longer about winning a fight against my sister. It was about building a life for 3 incredible children. The real work, the work of healing, was just starting. But for the first time, we had solid ground to stand on.